Michigan, like a 4.5 point favorite against Washington in the Natty
Open
at BetMGM. Yeah. So the first move was on Michigan last night. Total 55.5 for 56. So are we doing this again with Washington here?
Yeah, so I have to kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth, right? Because like I have baggage coming into this game. Like I already have the team that's minus 180 to win a bundle, and so like I don't know what I'm gonna do with that yet. I'm going to do something like I was zero hedge in the Alabama. Like we did it on the show. I was like, I have this position. I think they're really likely to win. You could argue I got really lucky. Whatever. My team won. So didn't have to like take any equity out to spend it on Alabama. It means the world when you get to this game to be able to do that and to be able to like potentially middle too. Like I can take plus 4.5. Michigan wins by 1 to 4. I win both bets. Like I can do whatever I want there. I think I will have some kind of hedge on this game. That's all I'll say right now. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet. I think Michigan's going to get bet a good amount that I'm going to be able to get some good prices, even if it just stays here. And the reason why I'll probably have something is, as somebody who wants Michigan to win the title, Washington's absolutely terrifying. I mean, they're really terrifying. So like a team with their stat profile would never usually be a team I'd want to bet on in a game like this. Their defense fits with 0 national champions the last 50 years. Like, they're just not good enough. They're just not good enough, like, statistically. The problem is when you have, like, okay, so, like, why do you think they can win then if that's true? Well, because I also watch the games, and they strike me as, like, a potentially disruptive team. And what I mean by that is a team that, like, despite having a stat profile that looks like that, can do something historically interesting, relevant, that teams that usually have those stats can't do. And the reason they do that is because they have the best coach in college football probably right now, maybe by a lot, and especially an in-game coach, and they have the best quarterback in the game. So think about that for a second. The team that's the 4.5 dog has the better coach and the better quarterback. That's kind of interesting, right? Just as a starting point, and has just found ways in these games to be incredibly competitive.
People haven't caught up to that, Ken, right? People haven't caught up to that, and I want you to slam this home, please, because I think everyone knows, right, that Penix is better than McCarthy, right? I think people at least think that, right?
And that Harbaugh's a really good coach too. Like this is like Buck and Aikman. Like Harbaugh can be Buck and Aikman.
People know that though,
right?
About DeBoer, to what you're like. I think people think, well, Harbaugh is going to the NFL. Everyone knows who Harbaugh is.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I don't know if people know about DeBoer yet, Ken.
Harbaugh's awesome. The Michigan staff is really good, although they kind of got out. I mean, Saban adjusted circles around them in the second half of the game, it felt like, but that's fine. Like, that's Saban. Like, he's pretty good too. So it just like this is not anti-Michigan staff. Just like you ever see the movie Heat with De Niro and Pacino in it?
Of course. Yeah.
So there's the scene where John Voight is talking to De Niro in the car about whether they want to go through with the robbery, and he has the file on Pacino, and he's like showing him like Pacino's background, that Pacino's like thinks De Niro's like, they kind of have this odd relationship, whatever. And Voight's telling De Niro about Pacino's character as a police officer or like a detective in whatever, special investigations, whatever it is. And he says it really simply. He goes, he's just one of those guys. He's just out there all night, like prowling around, like basically like De Niro, a bank robber, has like finally met his match. Like, you're not going to beat this guy. Like, this is just one of those guys. And I think I've even used that before with like college football coaches when they take big jobs sometimes and they come from smaller schools. We did this with like PJ Fleck before Minnesota like won 10 or 11 games. And DeBoer to me just seems like one of those, like, this is a guy like 10 years from now, we're going to be like, where did he oh yeah, that's right, Washington, where he like went to the playoff and like won that before he coached, like the Cowboys or something in like 5 years. Like, that's what his trajectory is to me. He's won basically every game everywhere he's ever coached, and in year 2 they didn't lose this year. I mean, that's like absolute insanity. I mean, really crazy stuff. So, and look, cool, Penix is great. Also, Penix didn't go to the playoff at Indiana. So, like, it's like, yeah, Penix is awesome. Also, this fit is why it's really good. So, I just, if he's one of those guys, then historical qualifiers be damned, kind of, if I think he can be that disruptive. So, I think this is just like, Alabama-Michigan was an awesome game, but I really thought Michigan was going to win. This is an awesome game, and Washington scares the hell out of me from like I don't want to be against them, especially at this number. So just real quick betting conversation for me on the game. If you're going to put Washington in a spot where one possession losses, a lot of them they still cover, then I'm interested. Like, in general, if I had no position on the game, no team to win the national title, whatever, plus more than a field goal, Washington, auto. And it's been auto for 3 games in a row. It's just like, this is what it is. And I think the most likely, the game is almost destined to be a one possession game. I mean, just the way both teams play, the way Washington just never gets trucked by anybody, feels like a one possession game. And there are ways Michigan can win a game like that. It doesn't have to be Washington, but just you're going to get 4.5 in a game like that. And I have some other thoughts on the total and stuff, but anyway, that's kind of my thoughts so far.
I loved it. And 4.5 with the better coach and the better quarterback. Sounds pretty appealing.
And
Sounds
might go
pretty
up,
appealing.
too, by the way. One thing that became like abundantly clear is the Ravens are now being priced like absolutely the team to beat in the AFC. They get the 1 seed. The Niners had already kind of been priced like they were the most likely team to win the NFC. But you're talking about, I play around with like, go to each sports book and try to do like AFC, NFC winner. Can I create like a parlay 2-team price that's more than what the market is offering? Like, can I play into these things that way? Ravens, Niners everywhere is like 320, 315, like 3-1, just like low prices for those two teams to meet in the Super Bowl. Is there a team out there in either conference that you think can disrupt and prevent a Ravens Niners Super Bowl from happening?
Yeah, I think there's several in both conferences. Those prices are crazy to me.
Who's in the NFC that's disrupting? Who's in the NFC that's disrupting things?
Rams, Cowboys, Eagles. You have three teams there with coaches and quarterbacks with experience. Like that matters. Like Brock Purdy's he had 2.25 playoff games under his belt. And yes, the home field advantage and the extra rest and all that matters. But the defensive injuries for this Niners squad all of a sudden are non-trivial. Like Ambry Thomas was hugely important for them in terms of getting their secondary pieces in the right places. And he's having hand surgery now. I know he's probably going to play through that or maybe be available later in the playoffs. But that still is a huge red flag for me. And in general, this Niners defense to me looks pretty clearly overrated. So I would definitely say that the Niners are beatable. And honestly, the way Brock Purdy played on Christmas Day, I support Brock Purdy. I want him to ultimately turn into kind of a perennially good quarterback and kind of elevate these Niners, through the portion of his rookie contract to where they are competing at this level every year. But if there's a game at home and he makes a mistake early, and it's egregious, the idea that he's not going to have some kind of mental, kind of ghosts about, oh man, is this another 4-pick game? Am I going to be the reason that we lose and fall out of the playoffs? Like that is very, very much a reality that wasn't, possible in the distribution a couple weeks ago, but, in super high leverage game with everyone watching, he played his worst game as a pro. And now he's going to have to get over that mentally. And I don't know that he does that without kind of making a deep run here. So Niners look vulnerable to me. And what's funny is people forget also Shanahan, amazing schemer, amazing, offensive genius in every aspect of you could possibly declare. It would be my first choice if I was hiring a coach with all of the options available. He is not an in-game, navigator of decision-making to the tune of some of these other guys like Sirianni is. And so, I think you can definitely, convince me that at least to take the points with the dog against the Niners in the divisional round is going to be tough just because they're going to have the extra rest. But in the NFC Championship game, if they're laying outside of a field goal against the Cowboys, against the Eagles, against the Rams, I would definitely give that serious consideration. I don't have any strong opinion on the Lions one way or the other. That defense looks still pretty suspect to me. And I think they could be, drawing dead to the degree that they're matchup dependent in round one. The Packers, I also think, are probably too young and just get their feet wet this year. And the NFC South winner is probably drawing dead in the 4-5. But it is still a lot more competitive in the NFC than the market expects. And I guess I'm against Niners.
Just, we did this with Michigan. Just like I care a lot about like what traits champions tend to have in all sports. It's different depending on the sport. And I just think this stuff is like super interesting in about 20 different ways. Think about how like this would have been crazy to think 2 months ago. In about 20 different ways, the Eagles would be the worst Super Bowl champion of this millennium if they won with this stat profile. I mean, like not even close. They're, by the way, still rated as the 6th most likely team to win the Super Bowl in the betting market, by the way. 0.0 would be my confidence that they could ever win the Super Bowl at this point. They're not even remotely close to previous champions, and we've had some bad champions the last 25 years. They're not even the zip code, and in 20 ways. Here's like a really fun one. The official NFL stats database allows you to sort by net touchdowns. So the amount of touchdowns you score minus the amount of touchdowns that you allow. It's kind of like an interesting way to think about teams. Typically, a Super Bowl champion will have something like 15, 20, 25, 30 net touchdowns over the course of the regular season. To put this in context, the Ravens and Niners, who are both like all-time teams right now, are both plus 30 in net touchdowns, which is completely outrageous. Just want to hammer that in. The Eagles, net touchdowns right now, 0. Scored exactly as many touchdowns as they've allowed. Think about that. That's embarrassing. Every single defensive metric, they're not even close to a Super Bowl champion. 27th in DVOA on defense right now, 24th yards per play. These are not even, if they won 70-0 on Sunday, they wouldn't look like a Super Bowl champion. Just like want to hammer that because like I keep looking at the market and Philly's being adjusted down, mostly because they're not going to host their game anymore. Dallas is going to host a game, but like they're done. They're way done. And you don't, like this stat prop, you don't come back from this and just win a bunch of games and win the Super Bowl. So they can look great against the Giants. They can win their first playoff game. Nothing precludes them from doing those things. Just, I think it's time to start, like we're living in a world where the Eagles are not going to win the Super Bowl this year. That's not going to happen. And it's important to keep that in mind.